Not good news. We are going to go ahead and start with a minute of silence. In fact, for Rebecca, we might make it 3 minutes of silence. You gotta Jackson, I just saw your text. But we're going to start with a minute of silence, and then we'll get into some good news. Starting now.
I'm not doing it.
All right. Start with some good news. Anybody? Nobody? I believe the exit is that way. No, but the Cardinals did steal our defensive coordinator.
Woo!
Which actually,
I don't even know what that is.
I think most Eagles fans are actually celebrating now. So, any good news?
I got a lot of good cleaning done in the house.
Cleaning done. Okay.
Today's my day off.
Nice.
It's also part of my good news.
I love
It's off. It was so good. Also, the weather was immaculate today.
the weather was immaculate. It was
Unrivaled.
all I wanted to do was stay inside. Oh,
That's not good.
no, that's not good.
That means that
Jackson.
often trying to steal our stuff.
No, it happens anytime that I get signed into this. I'm just gonna leave it there.
You can just okay. It doesn't
As-
matter.
Well, as soon as I,
Oh,
let's see. Oh, okay, never mind.
as long as the other devices are right, it is eating, it's fine.
Cool. Oh, sweet. Other good news? Wow, we had a terrible week, huh?
I don't remember what happened this week.
We had a fun Super Bowl party and Freya came and we signed up for some people, so when I say some people, that TED Talk thing, we gave us something to it, and we are going. So
There you go. Yeah, it sucks that it's kind of like right
yeah,
there in the campus.
right.
Oh, all the Marshall students,
Yeah.
you get it for cheaper.
Yeah.
Don't get to go.
Yeah.
Ah. Well, let us know how it is. Other good news? Anybody?
Anything out of the ordinary.
We're just all negative Nancy.
We're
today.
surviving.
Yeah.
Like, Courtney eats, Judy eats. They poop well. We're surviving. I'll be honest. We're surviving. Surviving. Anything we gotta do to thrive.
I talked to Minty Health today and got great food for you guys.
Hey.
Encouraging.
Yeah, come on, parenting advice. Getting advice, good idea.
Yes.
I thought you were on today. I did. Yeah.
Oh,
Friendship.
So yesterday, we go out for, like Chelsea asked, hey, can we go get food for Valentine's Day? So by the time I got off work, it was like, all right, we should just go and eat. We go to East Flavor, we go in, order and have our food within like 7 minutes.
What?
We were maybe I was if possible, we were out of there. Our parking spot was 42 minutes. We were back before the timer.
We had the opposite experience. We left at like 4:45 to go to Rocco's. We got over to Rocco's and it was an hour and a half wait. And so we drove home and 45 minutes later, we still hadn't had food gotten through. So we made it work.
Super Joe. Went out to Red Lobster. There was like a 45-minute wait. So we like went over to the bookstore, went to the arcade. Then we went to Red Lobster. When it comes to steak at a restaurant, greatest steak I've ever had.
Wow.
I've never seen any steakhouse. At Red Lobster. The shrimp, greatest shrimp I've ever had at anywhere. The lobster, the worst. I've never had any. I tried frog lobster, the worst.
Wow, I think we said that, I think it's on purpose.
Lobster was terrible. There was no flavor, it was not soft, it was not tender, there was nothing.
How about that?
If it tastes, it was great for the tank.
Yeah.
Oh.
And the lobster tail alone.
Yeah.
So we lost out on like 40 jobs because we didn't even eat it.
Dang.
I would have been in back, I would have been right there. It's not good.
Yeah, I'm not thinking. I should have.
They were being very.
But I myself am not the problem.
I think someone's persona on advice that he does not get.
And
It's good advice though.
I was so skeptical on this, I had to continually ask.
It's never any biscuits, okay? Your garlic butter biscuits are never any.
But the biscuits were made.
Like that. Oh, they're so good.
To be expected.
Full card, so. Well, I have tons of goodies. So we had Bible talk today and we had like a really good, like, sometimes Bible talks like, Jesus is nice, you should be nice. Like sometimes it's just kind of like, man, or like basic. And I feel like, I don't know, Garrett agreed with this, but I feel like our discussion today was like, oh wait, this is actually like, oh, it's kind of convicting. Huh, I didn't think about that one. Dang. So I don't know, would you agree? Well, I felt convicted by our Bible talk. And like we talked about kind of putting on the armor of God, and it was just convicting thinking about like being in army. And I was thinking about like all the practicals of like being in spiritual warfare. And I realized like I do most of those things by myself, but never think, oh, we should do this together. Like I completely forget that it's like, well, in an army, if you're putting on armor, like, I don't know, somebody got a tie on your shoulder thing and, you know, like, hey, who's got my sword? Like, there's a whole like process of like getting ready and like it's a communal thing. And so it's like really convicting, like, oh, wow, like that American, like, I'm just a spiritual person. I do things on my own. Like, wow, that really has, you know, affected my heart. So I was convicted by it, even if Garrett is perfect and, you know.
He puts his armor on, same way that everybody else does, by himself.
The other piece of good news, so I was walking around putting up these signs for our campus ministry, I still have 2 left. I'm walking down like the middle pathway and I'm like walking, there's this girl walking in front of me and I like put a sign in and as I'm walking past her, she goes, "Excuse me, would you pray with me?"
Wow.
I was like,
No, you said no.
God? Like, what is this?
You said no, right?
Well, I was like, are you kidding? Like, so we sat on a bench and like prayed for her friend and his mom or whatever. And I was like, oh, do you have like a group that you're part of on campus? She's like, no. So I gave her like one of our invites. I was like, we have church on campus at 10:30. It's all like pray a second time. Like it was just one of those like, who the heck? Like I've been walking around this campus talking to students for weeks. And nobody's come to Bible talk. And then this person asked me to like, what the heck? So anyway, it was funny too, because our whole thing's about incarnational listening. And I was sitting there as she's talking, I'm like, I got here 20 minutes early. It's been 15 minutes, like, oh. So it was a good
Should have just got
practical.
up and been like, follow me.
This is
You
what
live
Jesus
up here.
But I was like, it is more important to finish this conversation than to get midweek on time. So you're welcome, Rebecca.
All right.
Anyway, be praying for Shanti. She should be coming to church on Sunday, so
Nice.
who knows? But yeah, with that, let's pray and then we'll dive into it. Unless Lacey looked at me like you had more. No, okay, never mind. Let's pray. Dear Father God, Dad, I am so grateful, God, to just be able to get together as a community, God, as you talk about listening and listening incarnationally, God. I pray that you teach us how to do this. God, this is like your defining characteristic, that you leave your world, you enter into our own, and you help us to feel listened to. God, I pray that we can learn how to listen like this, that you will equip us with the skills and the practicals in order to do it. And God, I pray that we can do it in a way that glorifies you. God, I love you so much. I pray all these things for you all. Amen. So, we're going to start off with, I'm going to read out the quiz at the beginning of this chapter. And so if you want to, feel so inclined, you can ask somebody to take the quiz for you and say, hey, Garrett, you know me, tell me how well I do at this. If you like, want to mix it up a little. But it's a simple like, yes or I am good at this or not. And so I'll read through kind of all 10 statements and then read the little description at the bottom. So give yourself this little listening test. Circle all these statements you can affirm. So, number 1, my close friend would describe me as a responsive listener. When people are upset with me, I am able to listen to them without being defensive. Number 3, I listen not only to the words people say, but also to the feelings behind their words and their body language. Number 4, I have little interest in judging other people or quickly giving my opinion to them. Number 5, I am able to validate another person's feelings with empathy. Number 6, I am aware of my defensive mechanisms in stressful conversations. For example, appeasing, ignoring, blaming, distracting. Number 7, I am profoundly aware of how the family I was raised in has shaped my present listening style. Number 8, I ask for clarification when listening rather than filling in the blanks or making assumptions. Number 9, I don't interrupt to get my point across when another is speaking. And number 10, I give people my undivided attention when they are talking to me. And so out of those, if you got 8 to 10, you are an outstanding listener. Well done. If you circled 6 to 7, you're a good listener. 4 to 5, you're good. 3 or 4, or 3 or fewer, you're poor. It says you are in trouble. That's the book, not me. Okay, you're in trouble. So, just a little self-evaluation to start off. And so in the introduction, it says the Gospels are filled with accounts of Jesus' interactions with individuals. Matthew, Nathaniel, Nicodemus, the Samaritan woman, Zacchaeus, and many others. When the rich young ruler came up to him, for example, Jesus looked at him and loved him. He listened. He was present, never distracted or in a rush. He took the time to explore their stories. Many of us have heard sermons about the need to listen well and to be slow to speak. But listening does not come naturally to anyone. David Augsburger notes that listening is closely linked to loving, so closely linked to loving that the two are almost indistinguishable. Most of us did not learn to be good listeners while growing up in our families, but it is a crucial skill that can be learned. It remains one of the most significant ways we can practically demonstrate our love for another. And so over in James 1, James 1 verse 19 says, my dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. James says everyone. And that means everyone. Right? I think as we think about listening in terms of listening incarnationally, it's important to acknowledge the ways that our family has impacted us. The ways that we've been raised impacts a lot more than just listening, but it impacts how we listen to one another. And so we'll open up for a little bit of discussion here. 2 questions. How does your family communicate? How do you see like your family of origin communicate? And how is that similar or different to how God communicates?
My family communicates by not communicating.
Silently. Good. Yeah. In general, about everything.
Anything that's like to the they avoid it. So whatever, but like anything that's like deep, especially when it comes to like personal hurt, they don't like to talk about that stuff. They'd rather finish whatever, or they lash out if you try to pry.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's very different.
Yep.
I feel like my family, everything is said, like
Yeah.
people know, like if you like hurt someone, but it's never like told in a kind way.
Mm.
Like it's like, why would you do that? You suck. Or like whatever, but it's always like everything's said, but it's never said in like a loving and compassionate way. It's almost just like up in your face.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that I'm not really like that. I think like I'm used to like saying how I feel all the time. It's just usually never in like a gentle way. It's usually kind of like rash and kind of aggressive.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
I feel like my parents are very passive aggressive, and I feel like I grew up with my mom being very condescending, and then my dad shut me down. So I feel like for me, I normally it's very easy to or I don't want to be like my mom, so I'm so I feel like I shut you down is better than two people. But I think with God, he's persistent in a good way compared to how, like, not now, but.
I think with my parents, I always felt like I was in trouble. You know, like, they never, it seemed like they never came to me and talked to me like, when it was good things, it was always just like, why are you doing this? Why did you do that? And it was also rarely talking, it was more yelling or screaming. And then like after everything, you were just pretend it never happened until they threw it back in your face as a weapon.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's not how God does it at all.
Yeah. Junie has some feedback. She's like, yes, like, let me tell you about how my parents.
My parents communicate in different ways from each other. My siblings communicate differently from each other. And
It's just different.
yeah, I mean,
Like they're on different pages.
I feel like, yeah, I feel like everybody's on different pages and I'm always the mediator. That's how the communication ends up being in my family, is I always have to figure out, tell the other person how the other person feels,
Yeah.
make it make sense to the other person. But I'm trying to think how they spoke to me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember. I don't know if that's a defense mechanism, whatever,
Yeah.
but right now I can't even think like. I don't know,
And everybody's in their own bubble and you're the center of the Venn diagram.
yeah, cause I mean, my dad was on deployment most of the time, and then I was always the one who kind of had to resolve things.
Yep.
So, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I know I had a lot of arguments with my dad. It's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, I know for us growing up, it was like conflict was either screaming at each other or literally like fists flying, or in my sister's case, pulling knives on people. She learned quick. She was like, I may not be able to punch you, but I can pull out something that'll get you to back off. But like, she's right. So she never had. But it was always like the little things never got addressed, and then it built up until it exploded, and then it exploded, and everything kind of, everybody would go to their separate corners or whatever and cool off, and then there was no conversations about it afterwards. And I think it's important for us to recognize the parts of our families that like we still have. Like it is still easy for me to not address the little things, to not be real, like.
My dad would run away.
Huh.
My dad, like when there was a big anything that would happen, he would leave. Like he would leave the house and we wouldn't know where he went.
Yeah.
And now that you're talking about that, like that's in me.
Yeah.
To like want to like run away from the situation. And I think I've never done it.
Yeah.
But I know in college when I was emotionally charged,
You rode your bike.
shut up.
He's out. He's on the bike. Where'd that bike come from? Yeah. But it is like, you know, it's. I just have this visual of your dad, like. Big conversation, just physically running away.
Like, yeah, yelling, screaming, and then he'd get in his truck and drove, like one time, he was gone overnight. Come to find out, he like took his truck, bought a tent and went into the middle of
Lot
the
of
woods.
ten,
Wow,
that's
wow.
dedication.
Like,
How did he like his dad? Yeah, it was over like something stupid. Yeah, but like these things are important for us to see in our family, recognize in ourselves, and figure out, okay, what is the underlying fear, insecurity, what is driving these things, so that we can actually speak the way that God speaks. So that we can communicate how God communicates. And so a couple of guidelines for this practice of listening incarnationally. And they are the same exact practicals that we'll look over on Sunday. But repetition. That's why we're going over them again. So guidelines, as the listener, give the speaker your full attention. Step into the speaker's shoes and feel what they're feeling. Avoid judging or interpreting. Reflect back accurately as you can, what you heard them say. When you think the speaker is done, ask, is there more? When the speaker is done, ask, of everything you have shared, what is the most important thing you want me to remember? As the speaker, speak in the I. Keep your statements brief. Stop to let the listener paraphrase. Include your feelings. For a list of feeling words, you can see Appendix C, page 171. They have all sorts of feeling words, apparently. Things like
That's
afraid,
actually usual.
anxious, desperate, fearful, hopeless. We're going to continue now. Those are all under afraid, yes. Under sad, they have disillusioned. I have never described myself as disillusioned before.
they're miscellaneous.
They have a miscellaneous. Oh my God.
Miscellaneous. Indifferent, impatient.
I feel cooperative. Never said that either. Anyway, include your feelings. Be honest, clear, and respectful. It is critically important to help people distinguish a thought from a feeling. And so, like we said on Sunday, the most important part of listening is preserving the emotional connection. Like that, the attunement there is the most important piece. That the person actually feels not only heard, but understood. And so we're going to actually put this into practice. So we're going to pick a partner, pick anybody, and discuss this question. What has been the most difficult part of your life in the past 3 months? So the goal on the speaker's part, I guess, the speaker's goal is to share vulnerability. The listener's goal is to listen incarnationally. And so use this as an opportunity to evaluate your own ability to listen and to ask for feedback, both as a speaker and a listener. And so the goal is that, if somebody's trying to listen to you and they say, I feel like I don't even know what to listen to because you won't say anything. You need to be more vulnerable. On the flip side, if the person speaking is like, I feel like you were distracted by Junie's crying the whole time.
Yeah, but those aren't feelings.
Well played.
Well played. I only say that because I always say I feel.
It is, yeah.
Think about it.
It's a tricky one. It's
Yeah.
like, I say I feel for everything.
It's so easy.
Yeah. Anyway, this is an opportunity to evaluate yourself both as a speaker and a listener. And that's the point of doing it in pairs, is that you can ask for that feedback. So we're gonna take about 10 minutes and do that. Jackson, call me. You don't get an option. You have to pick me.
I choose
All right, well, I'm gonna interrupt everybody's conversations. Huh? Yeah, I know. That's okay. They'll figure it out eventually and trickle back in. So yeah, what did everybody like? Okay,
I'm still going, man.
There's-
Garrett's still
Okay.
listening.
well, you spent all 10 minutes talking.
Yeah, no, you went first. That'd be great, wouldn't it?
Oh, God. Anyway, people will trickle in if they want to. And so how can we grow on this? A couple of practicals that we didn't talk about on Sunday. I think identifying where we need to grow the most is the first step.
She's very.
Do you need to,
Yeah.
you need to do it. But I think identifying where we need to grow the most in terms of like the guidelines, in terms of any area, like whether it's the things that like listening respectfully, having full attention, whatever it is. I think identifying that thing is probably the most important aspect of it. And I think we can ask the people around us for feedback to figure out like, hey, do you feel like I am an attentive listener? I think the people around us often see the things that we don't. So they can give us feedback that is helpful. I think the second thing is assuming that you don't have all the information. It's where the idea of is there more comes from, is assuming that as the listener, I don't have the full context. I don't have the full story. So being able to ask questions around it to get a broader perspective is helpful. And then following up afterwards. Somebody says something like, man, I've just been super sad lately. Like I've been having a really hard time. And you may do a great job of listening in the moment, but if you never follow up, it almost doesn't even matter. And so following up afterward, listening is part of a relationship. It's not an event. I think oftentimes when we think it's an event, we turn it on and turn it off. But listening is something we should always be constantly doing. It should be part of our relationships, that we're constantly listening to what each other is saying. And so we'll close out with some discussion questions. Just two. What do you find to be the most challenging about listening incarnationally? And then do you think we do a good job at this as a group? Why or why not? So.
Amongst everybody or with your partner?
Yeah, so you should get the rest of the half of the group.
Okay. We'll show up.
Do we discuss with the group or?
Yeah, as a
partner? Okay.
Welcome back. So yeah, we're discussing our discussion question now. We've shifted. What do you find to be the most challenging about listening incarnationally, and do you think we do a good job at this collectively? Why or why not?
I think something I have an issue with is, I struggle with not interrupting. So like, part of me actively listening, is I want to ask questions to like understand more, but I forget the question by the time the person's done with it. So I'll like interrupt to ask.
Yeah.
But I think like in trying to ask more, in trying to be a better listener, it's almost like I can be coming off as not, but I also don't want to forget things and like forget points. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the practicals for speakers was giving space to allow questions. And so it's tough when the person you're speaking to hasn't read this chapter of the book and doesn't know to Yeah.
I also struggle with that as a speaker too, because I feel like I want the person to know, like, I wanna get everything out there.
Like, I want you to like, go in there, you're your own.
I am. Yeah, that's probably why I'm bad at it. Wait, like, I just wanna tell you the whole story, like, let me name one thing, like, I just wanna finish it, let me go.
And then they start.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
Well, so that's the great part about the listening, like the responding part though. Is like, as a listener, after they've told you everything, you clarify. And so if you're like, okay, this is what I understand. And so if you miss anything,
Yeah,
they can tell you at that point.
Yeah.
And clear that up.
yeah,
So,
Huh.
so you don't always have to say it like get the full picture immediately. Because when you asking for that clarifying at the end, like, this is what I understand, you just told me. They're like, oh, you missed this part, okay.
yeah.
You didn't seem so enthused about that.
I don't think so, I think that, I mean, I'm not.
Doesn't help for your speaking part, but it helps.
For your listening.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, this is a situation where I won't ask questions. I don't want the answers.
I think personally, I feel like I feel like I'm a better listener than I am a speaker. But where I lack in listening is questions that I ask. I feel like sometimes I don't know how to get it rolling and the right things to ask.
Yeah.
Which could be a sign that I'm not listening well. I don't know. But
You're sitting there listening and they finish and you go. So. With what you just said, and so I have no question. Can you say that again?
yeah, I feel like sometimes it's hard for me. Sometimes I just don't know how to ask the questions that are I don't know, sort of constructive or revealing.
Yeah.
So help go deeper in a way. Like if they don't elaborate on something.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's where I think my listening could improve. Although I feel like my strength is like a responsive listener. You ask my wife, she would say no.
You ask the person closest to me, they would probably say I'm lying,
Yeah.
but I become a responsible
But
listener.
I think I am. But yeah, I think knowing, I feel like I would very much enjoy practical go-to.
What do you mean you feel like you're a responsible listener?
In the sense that I feel like I haven't use people and you know what I mean, let them know, right? Almost to the point where it's too good to where I'm checked out when I'm doing it. You ever do that? Where you're yeah. Right, always. I feel like I do that really well.
Right.
In that sense, maybe that's not responsive. Or maybe that's not the responsive that this is talking about. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, thoughts about that? Asking good questions.
I'll
I know you were whispering to Nico.
I was listening.
I was listening. Yeah, thoughts about asking good questions, follow-up questions.
Is there anything else you expect? Is there anything else you need?
Clarity.
I mean, at work, every day that I leave, I go up to every person in the office and say, is there anything? Or I leave instead of just assuming that I've done that, that's expected.
Sounds awful. Huh? Sounds awful.
Yeah, I'm like walking up 4 or 5. They're like, hey, and I'm like 5.
Well, it's also for me because like, hey, is there anything else you need from me? Oh, did you do that one thing that I asked you to do at the beginning of the day? I definitely was supposed to do that today, so most of the times it's no, I'm
Right.
good, but
Or if they say no, and then maybe like the following day or later that week. It's kind of like a safety, like I came to you and asked, you to bring it up, it's sort of like fail safe. That way, it's,
yeah, it's just to make sure that.
Being Bible studies. So
Yeah.
I feel like since Bible studies, trying to get to like the very baseline thing. It's the first time you ask them the Bible study question or like, oh, what do you think about this? And you give a scenario, and it's like, oh, well, what made you do that scenario? And say, it's like, oh, like, how that made you feel? And I think I like that sums up just like clarifying questions, because it's like getting to the root basic line thought that made actions. So it's more Bible study.
there you go.
I know for me, when it comes to listening and even I'm bad. I was trying to, I'm like, I don't know, man, this is how I feel. And here's like, I kind of feel this, I feel this. I don't know what that means. So that's it. And then listening, I have to be in an environment to listen, like a specific environment to listen. Because if I'm anywhere where other people are talking near me, like I get distracted. And so knowing that also helps me.
Yeah, I think in terms of asking the questions, I think. I don't feel like. I think asking questions like a 3-year-old is really helpful.
Already asked me.
Can I have chocolate? Can I have chocolate?
But like, as a young kid, I ask questions about everything. Like I asked why 6 times in a row to figure, like, as I got older, it was more so to annoy people, but like, I asked questions about everything. And so, somebody's sharing about a rough day and like, why did your boss's comment have such a big impact on your day? What about that, affected you so badly? Yeah, I think like it almost doesn't even matter the quality of question. I feel like the more questions you ask, like when somebody is sharing something, you're getting. You ever see like Super Mario Brothers, where you like walk up to like level 1, and then all the rest of it is like covered in clouds and stuff, and you can't see the next path.
Yeah.
Like that in my mind is a conversation. Like you're presented with the first thing. And then you just kind of like you're trying to find one new path, and then from that path it splits and you can go left or right, and so I think there's a little bit of you don't know what your question is going to lead to down the road, but you know that there is something that you are working towards. And so I think asking those, it's even if they're not the best question to ask, asking like some kind of follow-up question leads to deeper stuff.
Yeah, I feel like it's so easy a lot of times to.
You feel your thing. You feel your thing.
I think it's easier a lot of times to just assume.
Yeah.
The answers. Say.
Yeah.
And you have to know, you already know. It's like. You don't know if you're 20-something years old, you know. God. You have to be better at asking questions.
Other thoughts? What do you find most challenging about listening incarnationally, and do you think we do a good job at this fireman? Jeannie doesn't do a very good job at listening at all. She just lashes out and punches people.
Work on it, because I think it's tied to that saltier conversation.
Yep.
There's one, you have one, you have the other. And I think, not that we don't have that, but I feel like, but we could also work on that, and so I think. Because we could work on that, we could work on listening information.
You see, we don't get into deeper conversations, so we don't.
I don't say we don't, I just say we work.
Oh.
Yeah, I think it does happen, but I think it could improve, so that's why I think. Incarnation. And I feel that.
Yeah, I think this takes a lot of patience.
In practice.
And practice, yeah.
So if we're not talking to each other.
Yeah.
Better.
Yeah. And I think that, like, I think the thing that stood out the most to me was the woman with 12 years of bleeding touching Jesus and him responding to the unspoken needs. Jesus walked slow enough to figure out, what does this person need? Like, yeah. And I think oftentimes I go way too fast to actually slow down enough in a conversation to hear the unspoken need. So. Yeah. Anyway. In terms of announcements for the campus ministry of Bible Talk tomorrow at 5 p.m. in Student Center and on the second floor. Other things, you need time. Sunday church on campus. It is at 10:30. I fixed the time for it this week. So we will be back on campus at normal time. Thank you again for the portillos for last week. And then other things, midweek is next Wednesday, right back here. And the campus retreat is coming up. So campus retreat, last weekend of February, $50 up in Ripley. Talk to me if you haven't. I think that's it.
If you're part of worship at all, worship, song practices is at 10 o'clock on Saturday. So if you guys want to carpool, let me know.
I don't want to be part of worship just for that.
Yeah, me too.
But trees breaking down.
Yeah. Anyway,
Love you guys.
we all.
Hi, Georgie. Bye.
See ya.